Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur with your host, Steve Kidd, third-generation minister and 30-year business coach. Listen in as amazing, world-changing authors, speakers, and coaches share their struggles and victories. And hear from best-selling authors' insight into how you too can live your life as a thriving entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur. Thank you for being here with us today. We appreciate the time that you take out of your day to enhance yourself. And we, really, I gotta say, it's awe-inspiring, really, that you have chosen this time to be able to, invest in yourself and use the people and the resources that we bring to you as part of that personal growth pattern. So thank you. I appreciate it personally, and I know that all of our authors that we've brought on, all of my amazing guests, we have so many cool things in store for you over the course of just the rest of this year, even in just the next couple of weeks and months. We always want to bring you not only amazing best-selling authors, great, phenomenal books that you should read, but we want to bring to you things that are going to help you grow in your life and your business. I've said it before, but it's worth repeating. At the end of the day, ultimately, we have to understand that our life shines out in our business, and our business comes through in our life. So in other words, if you are, having problems at home, you are not growing as a person, it will show up in your business. It absolutely 100% will, become apparent to people who are watching your business from the outside, and even sometimes the people inside of your business, that there are some things going on in your life personally. They may not know it. They may not even necessarily know that, to quote the old phrase, because the fish stinks from the head down, that the stink, if you will, is coming from, from something that's happening with you personally. But at the end of the day, that less thanness in your personal life will show up in your business, and people will recognize it. Whether it be things like, if you're having trouble in, say, your marriage, or you're not embracing personal growth, you will miss things. And so it may be that, you feel like you're doing an amazing job at work in spite of the fact that you are, for example, not spending quality time with your wife. It's an easy thing to do, whether you're husband or wife, to take for granted that our spouse is going to be there whenever we, quote unquote, get around to them, is a very dangerous and, really honestly, the only word that comes to mind is stupid way to think. Because people will find others when we're not fulfilling the role that we're supposed to fill in their life. And that doesn't mean that I'm talking about, necessarily a person having an affair or those kind of things. That person at home may just be a very high quality person in all that they're doing, but that makes it even worse. So here's a perfect example. All right. So you have kind of taken for granted, you've hit a certain plateau, you're doing really good, and you stop embracing personal growth. You stop growing as a person. Your spouse on the other, and through that, you're also avoiding not spending as much time at home with your spouse as you should. In the meantime, your spouse is really digging deep, going down deep to that personal stuff that we all have, and really bringing it out to light, getting it worked on, getting over it, beyond it, past it, whatever is necessary. Sometimes that hard work of forgiveness and things like that. And if your spouse at home is doing that and you're not, that is a recipe long term for problems, because she's going to outgrow you. Or if it's, roles reversed and it's the guy, it doesn't matter. Your spouse is going to outgrow you if they're continuing to grow and you're comfortable where you're at. See what I'm saying? Does that make sense? You see, at the end of the day, life happens. And I'm not saying that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can be in personal development. None of us can. It's just not real. It's not possible to not have things that distract you in life. But you need to have an intentional personal growth plan that you are constantly and consistently doing, on a regular basis. I want to see you include in there things like retreats. They don't necessarily have to be Tony Robbins or Lisa Nichols or Aaron Walker or any of those kind of people's personal growth retreats. They could be, you and the Bible, or Think and Grow Rich, or any one of the amazing books that I could name off to you, away in a cabin by yourself growing. It could definitely be you and your spouse taking a weekend off. And instead of going to, Kathy and I like to go to the casino, even sometimes when we never make it down to the casino floor, because, you can get some pretty good rates at a casino hotel if you go on a regular basis. We like to try to get away at least twice a year, preferably quarterly. And there's something to be said for that concept of not going with the intent of being entertained, but rather with the intent of growing together. I can think of some of the best times Kathy and I have had together growing in our relationship. And they've been, one that just immediately pops into my mind is sitting in one of the junior suites at Chinook Winds in Lincoln City, Oregon. We went there several times. Really great view of the ocean, watching the ocean waves crash. Have the door open a little bit so you can smell that salt sea air. Have the, electric or gas, whatever it is, fireplace going, and hearing that modified crackling sound. It isn't wood, but, you still get kind of that sound and that feel. And then just really sitting next to each other, across from each other at a table, and really taking some time to talk to each other. And so we need that as couples too, and we need it individually. We need it as companies. Your company needs to have personal growth for each of the individuals, and growth from a personal development, if you will, standpoint, as part of how you run your company. We need all of those kind of things, because if we don't, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, stuff comes up in life. If we don't have a plan ahead of time, then when that stuff comes up in life, it's going to totally hijack everything we wanted to do, we intended to do, but we never got round to it. You know what I'm saying? And we very quickly find ourselves plateaued and being comfortable, even sometimes taking a dive. I know what it's like. I've been there. Honestly, there was about a 10-year period where it was right after my parents' divorce. I've been pretty open about it on other shows. And, my parents probably should have gotten divorced earlier, honestly. But both the timing of the fact that it happened less than a month, a couple of weeks really, after Kathy and I got married. And the fact that I had just been through so much personally with the struggles in their relationship, it really rocked me in. And it took me a good about 10 years to really intentionally stand back up. It wasn't that I couldn't have done it sooner, it was that it became a really convenient excuse to be broken, which, by the way, also leads to brokenness. And I'm sure you've had those things in your life too. Sometimes, like you said, it isn't something that is a cataclysm per se, but you allow it to become that. And that really, more than anything, comes from taking our eye off the ball and not having an intentional plan ahead of time. Because at the end, whether it is something huge, whether that's huge for you or huge, for everybody in the whole world, or it's a little, stub your toe kind of an incident, all distractions are equal. I don't know if you've heard me say that before. Kathy and I talk about it all the time. All distractions are equal. Even a good distraction is a distraction. So I'll give you a perfect example. You've heard people talk about shiny bauble syndrome and things like that. But a perfect example is, somebody comes to you or you're at a conference and you hear an idea and you're like, oh man, I want to implement that in my company. And you get all excited about it and it's new and it's exciting. But what you didn't stop to look at was the fact that it's a complete left turn at Albuquerque. You are now 100% distracted from what you were intending to do, from the plan that you had, from what, and here's the big one, from what has been working. Now, I'm not saying don't do or even try other things in your business, but don't sacrifice the things that have been working in order to try or do other things in your business. I mean, there is definitely, you heard Jenny Thompson, with her book, The 3-Day Business Cleanse, talk about all the different projects that we need to let go and really just, shut up about them, as her book says. But I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about things that are working. Plans, procedures, policies, marketing programs especially. That's a big one I see people do is, they get distracted and the first thing they do is they change up their marketing program. It's just 2 times when marketing programs that are working end up getting tinkered with and it really messes with the company is A, when something new and exciting, a distraction comes in, or B, when the money starts to back off a little bit. And then we always cut the place that we should never cut, and that's in our marketing budget. So, we find ourselves focusing on that new and exciting thing. And here's the interesting part. That new and exciting thing may blow up. It may be amazing for a while. It may even become something that you want and need and should have as part of your company. But if you've let drop, especially the things that are already working, that you're known for, that are impactful and powerful in your company, in order to do that other thing, that's a distraction. And it's just as damaging as, like you said before, deciding for whatever reason to not do your marketing at all. Or having a major illness that takes you out of being able to do the day-to-day things that you do. Good distraction, good opportunity. You gotta break it. I'll give you a perfect example. Kathy and I just moved into a new house. It's a great house. We're really happy, totally blessed to have it literally fall in our lap. But the truth of the matter is as good of a thing as that is, all distractions are equal. And it meant time that we weren't working because we were packing stuff up, time that we weren't working because we were moving, time that we weren't working because stuff wasn't set up right, times when we showed up to meetings and things that were already scheduled less than we normally would have because we moved. And I'm not saying that I regret the house at all. I'm glad we're here. But then when you come into a distraction, you can find that if you already understand up front that all distractions are equal, then when the distraction is worth it, because some of them are. For example, I was talking a little bit ago about time away with your wife. Let's be honest, that's a distraction from the day-to-day things you do, but that's a necessary distraction. It's a good distraction, and it is something you should do. But you do also need to understand in your systems and your plan that when you set aside that twice a year, 4 times a year, once a month to get away and spend time with your spouse, you need to have a plan that understands that that is a disruption, a distraction to what you would be doing on a normal day-to-day basis, and learn how to impactfully show up in the world, in your life, in your business, in the way that you know you can, with distractions already considered as you're making that plan. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I hope that helps somebody. I just really feel like there's somebody out there today that really has been struggling with some of those different kinds of things. And maybe it's a shiny bauble syndrome. Maybe it's you need to be more intentional about your relationship with your spouse, and you need to allow that to become a distraction. Whatever that might be, I hope that really helped you kind of up-level yourself and really look at what's going on as you are pushing forward toward this thing called thriving, and really truly embracing that all distractions are equal, and that when we then know how to deal with distractions, we can show up powerfully in the midst of whatever might come along, whether it be your youngest daughter being diagnosed with leukemia, which we went through, almost a year and a half ago now, and came out the other side shining, or it be a phenomenal new house that God just drops in your lap. You can have a plan, show up powerfully, make it from where you are now to where you're going, and keep moving forward, because you understand that pre-planning for there to be distractions in your life is a powerful way to show up and to be a thriving entrepreneur. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You've heard Kathy and I talk about it. You've seen the workshops. You have watched as others of your friends have become a best-selling author. And now it's your turn. Let me ask you this. What would being a best-selling author do for your business? Over 80% of people surveyed said that they want to write a book, which means that if you're listening, you probably are one of those people. Now is your time, because you have a message that needs to be shared. That message is not for you. It's not for your ego. It is because it serves other people. Kathy and I are here to help you share your unique brilliance with the world. All you need to do is go to WeHelpYouThrive.com, check us out, and find out how you can be a best-selling author today.
Welcome back to Thriving Entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome back. Thanks for listening today to Thriving Entrepreneur as we talk about the distractions and the disruptions in your life and how you can powerfully show up and be impactful even when those happen. Now, I gave my little soliloquy at the beginning, and I want to bring on an author for you who has an amazing book that is going to be able to help you with this. The book is called Undisrupted: How Highly Effective People Deal with Disruptions. I think there's some stuff in here that's going to really help you out to understand that all distractions are equal, that disruptions are going to happen, and then really know how to deal with them effectively as we all thrive as entrepreneurs. Join me in welcoming John Vespasian. Hi, John. How are you today?
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
I really appreciate you spending the time with us here today. You have, if I understand correctly, your 10th book that just came out.
Yeah, it just came out. The title is Undisrupted.
That's awesome. So are all of your books on the same genre, or do they cover a spectrum of things?
Yeah, there's a common thread running through all the books. What I've been doing now for 10 years is to go through history, through hundreds of stories, hundreds of biographies, and to try to extract in each book principles in certain areas that we can apply today in the 21st century. So the books are very practical. They're very much oriented for immediate application. But each book contains dozens of small stories with a lesson trying to show the readers how to make better decisions, faster decisions, and generally speaking, to improve their businesses and their lives.
And what is your background?
I have a commercial background. I've lived in different countries. I lived in Italy, in Spain, in France, in Germany, picking up some languages along the way. And I've been now writing books for 10 years. I started to write books a bit by chance, out of sheer frustration, because I could not find the kind of books I wanted to read, books very practical, very factual. There are a lot of books about personal development and personal finance that are full of blah, 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 but you don't really get any specific advice. And I'm trying to do exactly the opposite now for 10 years, writing very much factual, practical books.
So this new book is called Undisrupted: How Highly Effective People Deal with Disruptions. So first of all, I'd like to just kind of create a baseline of some definitions. What would you define as a highly effective person?
Well, someone who is not thrown away by problems, who can continue more or less calmly, or at least without going into panic mode every time that hits a problem. And this is something relatively rare. Most of us tend to become very emotional when we face problems in our businesses or private lives. And what I have done in the book is to go through a lot of biographies of people who have made very good decisions and very bad decisions in times of extreme stress, and to try to come up with the lessons, with the principles of how to improve our ability to manage under extreme pressure.
I know a lot of us have pressures that come into our life. It's pretty normal as human beings. What differentiates the people who know how to deal with disruptions and the ones who struggle with them?
There's one principle that you will find in all the stories in the book, and it's the following. People who are very good at managing disruptions, I'm talking in the widest sense. That could be sickness, could be bankruptcy, could be mistakes in business, could be anything. People who are very good at doing that, they tend to act always on their strengths. And people who repeatedly or dramatically make bad decisions, they tend to improvise. They tend to panic. They tend to do things they've never done before. They tend to go to places they don't know. They tend to engage in activities that for them is the first time. And this is the worst possible reaction. So the principle is very simple. When you're facing problems, try to rely on your strengths. The application of this principle is quite challenging because many people don't know their strengths to start with. We tend to become extremely pessimistic when we face problems, and some people just are too willing to throw away their experience, their career, their network. They don't realize the assets they have. and they become very depressed, very anxious about the future. And you will see in the examples, we'll go through some examples during the interview, people who are very good at keeping calm, staying relatively cool when they're facing problems. They always go back to their strengths. They bring the problems in a way, or they go around the problems in a way that eventually they are managed to act in accordance to their strengths, to their assets, to their skills, to their social network. If you let that go and start to improvise, chances are that the disasters will ensue.
Now, everybody has situations that come up in their life. Some of them are extreme. It might be a tsunami or a major type of cataclysm that happens outside of our control. What does a person who knows how to deal with that and that disruption in their life, what do they do? What's some secrets that they know to employ that they can really use?
One of the recurrent strategies that I address in the book is diversification in the widest sense. What people don't realize, when you're having a normal life, so to speak, and you are healthy, you have a job or you have a business, and you have friends and you're doing well, you feel like most of us feel, we feel invulnerable. We tend to assume that everything is going to continue in the same way, that we will never have to face severe sickness, bankruptcy, total collapse, or being fired from a good job. And sooner or later, everybody has to face these situations. And the strategies to prevent disruptions and to prevent total collapse, the strategies to reduce vulnerability, they have been known since centuries, but we have to adapt them to the 21st century. Diversification in the widest sense, when I'm talking about diversifying your social life, to having different types of friends, to diversifying your sources of income, which seems very easy to advise, it's not so easy to implement for most people because they are taken, all their time is taken by their main primary activity. And very few people have actually make the effort to create a second or a third source of income. And when they have to face a natural disaster, a flood, a fire, whatever, unless they have insurance, they find themselves destitute. While if you have taken the precaution to keep some money in a safe place, to open a bank account in a different place, to keep some money for emergencies, might be in another country. This depends where you live, because in some countries it's not so easy to open bank accounts abroad. If you take this strategy of this diversification seriously, you will find a way to do it. And it's a pity to see that so many people get their lives massively disrupted when they are fired from the job, when they have to face a natural disaster, a flood, a fire, or when they divorce, or when they lose their friends. It's a pity that it is not taught at school or university that we have to protect, we have to reduce our vulnerability. It's part of a safe, of a reasonable business strategy. Most businesses will have strategies of business continuity during disasters. And you want to keep your marketing programs, your financial programs, your life going, you have to adopt some kind of strategy against disruptions.
That's really good stuff. I hope you've been taking notes. I hope that you really are digging in deep to what John's teaching us about, to what we're talking about in this whole episode. Because a highly effective person doesn't try to live a life that's distraction-free, that has no disruptions, that has nothing bad ever happen to them. A lot of times we want to think that, hey, that person just is born with a lucky star, or something like that. But we know that's not really real. Highly effective people deal with their disruptions. And that's why they are thriving entrepreneurs. We'll be right back.
You've heard Kathy and I talk about it. You've seen the workshops. You have watched as others of your friends have become a best-selling author. And now it's your turn. Let me ask you this. What would being a best-selling author do for your business? Over 80% of people surveyed said that they want to write a book, which means that if you're listening, you probably are one of those people. Now is your time because you have a message that needs to be shared. That message is not for you. It's not for your ego. It is because it serves other people. Kathy and I are here to help you share your unique brilliance with the world. All you need to do is go to WeHelpYouThrive.com, check us out, and find out how you can be a best-selling author today.
Welcome back to Thriving Entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur. Today I'm talking with John Vespasian and his book, Undisrupted: How Highly Effective People Deal with Disruptions. I hope that you're listening because I really do want you to catch the fact that people that are really, really talented and really getting it done, they have distractions too. They just have learned some secrets to be able to deal with those disruptions and move forward in an effective and powerful way. So I know in the book you encourage people to embrace certain types of disruptions. What kind of disruptions do you encourage people to embrace?
Yeah, especially there are situations when you have no choice, especially when you feel you're stuck, or you're stuck in your business or you're stuck in a career and you cannot move because the circumstances are against you, because you are working in a field that is getting obsolete. You're working in a company that is losing money. You have a job and it happens to be a dead-end job for whatever reason. Their only solution is to go through some kind of disruptions. You cannot expect a miracle that the whole economy is going to change to make your company successful. If you're in an area or in a job or in a situation, or could be a relationship, and you're stuck, you have to make the decision whether you're just going to endure misery for years or to take a risk. And let me just give you an example, a story from the book. Look, one of the examples I present in the book is the life of Albert Schweitzer. Schweitzer was very famous in the 1950s and 60s because he started a hospital in Africa. He was there giving free medical care to people living there. But few people know that Schweitzer was a university professor. He was a professor in Strasbourg in France, teaching theology at the university. And he had worked 20 years to build his career. He did a PhD. He wrote several books about theology. But at a certain moment, he was very unhappy with his life. He wanted to do something else. He felt trapped in his job. And he took, after a lot of discussion and reflection, he took a very radical approach and said, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go to Africa. I want to start a hospital. He tried to get a job as a missionary, but he was rejected because as a professor, he didn't have any skills he could use in Africa. So eventually he quit his job. He got into the Faculty of Medicine. He got a medical degree. It took him 4 years. And he got his job and he went to Africa. Now, he said this is a major disruption. But the lesson from the book, from the story, is that Schweitzer covered his downside. And this is something super important that you have to do when you go through this kind of disruptions. Schweitzer knew that he was very likely to fail because the kind of disruptions he was getting through was huge. I mean, all his friends were against it. His family was against it. His colleagues at the university, they told him he was a fool, that he was quitting a very good job just to go to Africa. And Schweitzer, what he did very cleverly was to keep his assets protected. And Schweitzer was a very good player at the organ. He played in the cathedral every Sunday. He played the organ. He had been playing the organ for years. And he had the reputation of being a great organist. So what he did when he went to Africa, in the middle of nowhere, because he started his hospital in a village in West Africa, he bought a second-hand piano, an upright piano. It was very cheap, and he took it with him to Africa. And he would play every day for 1 hour just to keep his musical skills to a high level. So he knew that if his hospital failed, if he needed money, he could always go back to Europe and make money playing music. And he did it very regularly. When he ran out of money, he would go back to Europe for a few months. He gave concerts in cathedrals, in churches, in France and in Germany. He raised money and he went back to Africa. And he did it for almost 30 years. And he became very successful. But the lesson is a very important lesson. When you have to go through disruptions because you have no choice, because you are stuck, because you are dissatisfied with your life or with your business, always keep your skills to a very high level, protect your essential assets, because they will keep you calm in situations. Schweitzer was able to go through major disruptions because he always knew that he could rely on his skills as a musician. And very often he had to do so. If he had gone to Africa with nothing, with no backup, with no way to protect his downside, he would have been super stressed, so stressed he might have died. And some people are very foolish to embark in business ventures, marketing ventures, without covering their downside. And this is a very important lesson to learn from the story. Keep your skills, protect your skills, and when you go into this kind of transitions, this kind of disruptions, you will be able to stay calm because you know you can always go back to your basics.
There's a lot of people in the world, they seem to see gloom and doom around every corner. They're just pessimistic by nature. What would you say to a person who is always seeing the downside of things?
Yeah, it's inevitable if we watch the news, or you just listen to the news, it's inevitable to get a lot of pessimistic information because it's part of the business. If you run a news station, a radio station, or a TV station, you have to keep people hooked, and you have to keep people to a certain extent anxious so that they watch the news. And it's not, I'm not saying this negatively, but it's normal. It's part of the business. Good news is not news, and you need to put always an aspect of anxiety and fear. So the advice in this case is that you have either to filter the news you read and make sure that you try to keep a good balance in what you read. You can always read different sources, different stories, or otherwise that you try to keep what you read in perspective, in historical perspectives. Let me just give you an example. Look, now in the last 2 years, there's a lot of anxiety about international trade, a lot of anxiety about the impact on businesses and the impact of jobs. And this is something that a normal business, a company cannot control. It's something you have to live with. And the only thing you can do when you're dealing with this kind of events, this kind of negative news, is to try to stay cool and to take protective measures, which might be to build up your stocks, to build up different markets, to open new markets, and to try to diversify and to cover your risk. But don't go crazy because of the negative news, because we live in the 21st century, which is by far the most open and the most entrepreneurial in history. And I think we have to put things in perspective. Even if you spend the whole day watching negative news, this will not change the fact that we live in a century of amazing opportunities that even 10 years ago were unthinkable.
So how do people that are highly effective, how do they deal with disasters when they come in their life?
Yeah, in the book I present many stories of people who have been become invalids, people who have lost use of fingers, they have suffered accidents, and at first sight, what happens is that they become very depressed. I think this is something that is inevitable when you are leading a normal life and then you have an accident. One of the stories I tell is the story of Django Reinhardt. He was a guitar player, a famous guitar player, in the period between First World War and Second World War. Reinhardt suffered an accident. He was a gypsy and he was living in one of these traveling caravans. They didn't have electricity at the time, and they used candles. And during the night, a candle was overturned, and his mobile home got fire, and he was heavily burned. He lost use of one finger, and then he could not play guitar anymore. So his musical career was basically finished, and he was only starting. And what people do in these kind of situations, there is a very good strategy that Django Reinhardt employed that I think is a very good piece of advice. When you are facing these kind of problems and you see that apparently there are no answers, because what do? You play guitar and you have one finger less, you cannot play guitar. It seems that it's over. When you're facing these kind of situations that apparently have no solution, what you have to do is to find in history someone who has solved a similar problem. And Reinhardt started to think what he could do to solve the problem. He could not find any example of anyone playing guitar with 4 fingers, but he did find examples in history of people who have had modified musical instruments so that they could play with different deficiencies. So eventually Reinhardt tried different approaches, and he came up with the approach that made him very famous, that if he managed to play guitar 25% faster than normal, he could play with 4 fingers. And he trained, after he discovered the principle, he said, okay, I can do this, I can do this. Nobody has done it before, but people have done something similar in the past. So he trained for 6 months, and eventually he played very, very fast. So he could compensate for a missing finger. And during the next 20 years, he made a lot of recordings. He became very famous. He made a very successful tour with Duke Ellington in the United States. And until his death, he was a very famous musician. But the way he was able to deal with disruptions is exemplary, because he employed the best possible principle. Try to find someone who has solved a similar problem, use the same principle to solve yours.
So what can the listeners do? What steps could they take to protect themselves from unseen threats and disruptions in their life?
Yeah, one of the things you have to do, I think it's a very good practice, and I learned this from an entrepreneur in the 19th century. His name was Robert Stephenson, and Stephenson was a financier. He was working in railroads, building railroad lines in the United Kingdom in the 19th century, and he was running projects. What he did was to raise money for different tracks, for instance, between Liverpool and Manchester, and put together the project. And Stephenson had to deal with huge amount of stress because he had constantly to run huge debts in his projects. He had to raise money. He had to get also a concession from the British Parliament to build the railroad. And he was playing with balls, all the balls that were in the air all the time. And the guy was running from project to project. So he had a huge amount of stress and a huge amount of disruptions because he also made some very severe mistakes. But he had a trick. He had a very clever way to stay sane amidst this horrible, stressful environment. And what Stephenson did every day, he broke his day into segments. So, for instance, every morning he would spend 90 minutes reading some book for his personal development, or history book, finance, law books. He would read every day for 90 minutes. Then he would go into his meetings. He spent the afternoon answering letters. And then he left 1 hour in his schedule to deal with emergencies. So he had to deal with a lot of emergencies during his career. But his structure, the structure he gave to his days was very solid. It already contained sufficient margins to deal with emergencies. And Robert Stephenson was able to surmount huge problems. He almost got bankrupt a couple of times. And thanks to his very strict breakdown of his time, he always was able to maintain his routine, and he never got crazy even under extreme pressure.
The book is called Undisrupted: How Highly Effective People Deal with Disruptions. It's by John Vespasian, and I really suggest that you do go to Amazon, check out it and all of his other books. John, thanks so much for spending some time with us on the show today.
Many thanks, Steve.
It's so exciting for me to hear all of the different ways and the different things that people bring out in their books. And the cool part about it is it's not like any of us have put out a book into the world and it's like, wow, I have never, ever heard anybody ever say that again. So much as it's, I've never heard anybody say it that way. Or the way that he helped me understand it made a difference. I hope there were some moments during this interview that you found yourself going, hey, I get that. I've got some new skills now that I can use to, maybe even intentionally do things that are disruptive in my life so that I'm growing. There's an old saying that says, when a fruit is green, it's growing. And when it's ripe, it's rotten, or it's beginning to rot at least. You see, we all look for that end point, and it's pretty normal for all of us. We want to reach a place where life is perfect and calm and peaceful. But the truth of the matter is we don't ever really want to get there, because that's the end of our life, and that's moving on to whatever's next. We want to live and thrive in everything that we're doing. Right here, right now, in this moment. I know that there's challenges that you have in your own life, and they're different from other people, but I want you to feel encouraged that you do have the ability to rise above those things that have come up against you, and you can succeed, and you can live as a thriving entrepreneur.
You've heard Kathy and I talk about it. You've seen the workshops. You have watched as others of your friends have become a best-selling author. And now it's your turn. Let me ask you this. What would being a best-selling author do for your business? Over 80% of people surveyed said that they want to write a book, which means that if you're listening, you probably are one of those people. Now is your time, because you have a message that needs to be shared. That message is not for you. It's not for your ego. It is because it serves other people. Kathy and I are here to help you share your unique brilliance with the world. All you need to do is go to WeHelpYouThrive.com, check us out, and find out how you can be a best-selling author today.
Welcome back to Thriving Entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome back. You've been listening today as we talk about disruption, about distractions, about the things that all of us have come up in our life. And even sometimes how we can impactfully, intentionally disrupt our norm. If you were to go talk to a physical trainer, a nutritionist, those kind of people, a lot of what they do is disruption on purpose. If you were exercising properly and eating properly and doing all that stuff to the best that you possibly could do, you wouldn't really need a trainer. But all of us need coaches, and it's in different areas. Sometimes it's in the area of health and fitness. Maybe it's in personal development. Whatever that area that you have, situations you're still dealing with, it's really effective and should be expected, really, that coach is going to bring some disrupting things into your life. They need to help you not do things the way that you've always done them so that you can get different results. Remember, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different result. It really, if that's not showing that you're insane, it will drive you insane. Trying to stay the course of something that isn't working and not make the changes that are necessary, but yet somehow expect that things are just going to all by themselves change. I remember, one of my kids, when he was little, he had big dreams. And I think he still has big dreams, but I'm talking specifically when he was little. He had big dreams. But in his dreams, somebody was just going to discover him. It wasn't going to be the result of hard work and a lot of self-marketing. It was just going to literally be somebody comes up to the door, knocks on the door, and says, "I've been looking for you. You must have what we're looking for." And that's not really the way it works in life. If you want to win Publishers Clearinghouse, the first thing you have to do is you have to enter. I write in my book about the fact that if you really, really, truly want to win on a lottery or things like that, that's work too. You would really need to, in order to be guaranteed to win, you'd have to do a lot of research. You'd have to spend a lot of time finding out what are your odds of winning, how many times would you have to enter in order to be guaranteed to win something, and then what's the least something that you might win. Are you going to spend 5,000 hours of your time and end up winning a basketball, or a tennis racket or something like that? So you really have to weigh what really needs to be done and then work effectively at it. Kathy and I were watching a show the other day, and it was a bunch of criminals, and they were working really, really hard to be able to steal money. And then at the end of it, between the costs of doing it all and how many of them there was, it wasn't really that much money. Not for the amount of effort, especially combined with the risk. See, there is high risk, high reward opportunities, whether they be legal or illegal. And the problem with them is the high risk often involves betting your whole life on the possibility for that reward. Whereas if you invest yourself in things that are high reward, but the risk is at an acceptable level, that it's something you can afford to do. I really think that you can take something powerfully from that. And then beyond that, take a look at the day-to-day life that you have and ask yourself, am I too risk aversive? Am I avoiding risk because I'm afraid of the distractions, the disruptions in my life? And do I maybe need somebody to come in and disrupt me a little bit, to put me on a course that is radically different from what I'm doing, because what I'm doing isn't serving me? And that's the real question. In the opening segment, I was talking about allowing yourself to be distracted by things that are good, so much so that you stop doing the things that are already working. And I'm not talking about those kind of things as disruptions, but rather allowing yourself to be disrupted to the point where you stop doing things that aren't serving you and make a radical change to do something different, to be someone different and better than what you were before. I know you can do it. I believe in you. I really know that you've come through some things, that you already have had disruptions in your life, and you have come through to the other side of that. That's not saying that there won't be more that will come up in the future, but we need to celebrate you about that. And we need to also understand that there is somebody else that is making that same decision because they don't know any better. You see, you made that decision that took you on a bad course because you didn't know any better. But now you know better, and so you'll do better. And what we can do is we can share that with the world. That's what's so powerful about a book, is we can take that thing that we've been through and not have to be perfect in life, not have more things that are going to come up in our life, but simply share with the people who haven't gone through that yet what we learned, how they can maybe avoid that, save them a little bit of pain. Tell them, hey, when you stick your hand on a hot burner, it burns your hand. And if you leave it on there long enough, it's going to leave a permanent scar. Maybe I can help you use a hot pad so that you don't burn yourself like I did. We'd love to have you share your story with the world. You can do that simply just by joining us at Bestsellers Guild. Just go to bestsellersguild.com and share your unique brilliance with the world, because you are uniquely brilliant. You were created with a purpose. You're not an accident. And the world needs you. I want you to really let that sink in, because the world really does need to learn from you what you've learned thus far. Please know that Kathy and I are here to help you live every day of your life as a thriving entrepreneur, through the distractions, through the disruptions, into the successes that we know are coming your way. You can thrive in your life and business. I really hope that you'll take that to heart. And until next time, have a great week.
Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur today. If you want to get your question answered, send an email to questions@wehelpyouthrive.com. We look forward to you joining us again next time.
You've heard Kathy and I talk about it. You've seen the workshops. You have watched as others of your friends have become a best-selling author. And now it's your turn. Let me ask you this. What would being a best-selling author do for your business? Over 80% of people surveyed said that they want to write a book, which means that if you're listening, you probably are one of those people. Now is your time, because you have a message that needs to be shared. That message is not for you. It's not for your ego. It is because it serves other people. Kathy and I are here to help you share your unique brilliance with the world. All you need to do is go to WeHelpYouThrive.com, check us out, and find out how you can be a best-selling author today.